Thank you for joining us for today's celebration. We are the Anza-Borrego Foundation, ABF for short. And our mission, since our formation in 1967, is to support the state in its efforts to preserve and interpret the Anza-Borrego Desert State Park. For the past half-century, ABF has pursued this charge with commitment, passion, and perseverance. The Anza-Borrego story begins in the 1930s, when California began to build a system of state parks for its growing population. At that time, lands began to be set aside for the creation of a great desert state park in eastern San Diego County. Eventually, boundaries were established for what was to become the 1,000-square-mile park we enjoy today. However, within those initial boundaries, there still remained over 70,000 acres of private inholding. Since its inception, ABF has been busily acquiring these inholdings from willing sellers, over 55,000 acres to date. These acquisitions have been spread throughout the park, from the Riverside County line in the north down to the Mexican border. The transaction we celebrate today contains lands that were purchased as early as 1992 and as recently as 2016. Over 17,000 acres that represent the earnest, passionate effort of our generous donors, volunteers, staff, and other supporters. The 331 individual parcels contained in this transaction make it the largest and most complex ever between state parks and one of its nonprofit partners. So tonight, we invite you to raise a glass and celebrate with us, a celebration a quarter century in the making, which ensures that these precious desert lands and the unique resources that they contain are preserved forever, to be visited and enjoyed by both the people alive today and the generations to come.
Hi everybody, I'm Bill McDonald, President of ABF. I want to welcome you all to our celebration of a really big deal. Before we continue, I want to acknowledge that this land I stand on today is the ancestral home of the Kumeyaay, Kuiu, Kupanyo Native Californian people. Anza-Borrego Foundation and I acknowledge that Anza-Borrego Desert State Park occupies the tribal lands of indigenous people, and since time long past, they have stewarded this area. We strive to honor and emulate that relationship with this land, as well as recognize their continued connectivity with this land today. The land transfer we celebrate tonight is one of the cornerstones for a new conception of Anza-Borrego Foundation. In coming months and years, you'll see new and expanded programs and partnerships. It is not a different mission for ABF, but it will be a mission with broader horizons. Hope you enjoy the rest of the show. Let me introduce the Executive Director of ABF, Bree Fordham. Cheers, Bree.
Cheers, Bill. Thank you. Welcome, everyone. My name is Bree Fordham. I'm the Executive Director of Anza-Borrego Foundation. I'm delighted you are here this evening, celebrating this very important occasion with us. I'd like to start by saying thank you to all who have made this transfer of land possible. All who have touched this transaction goes far beyond our team over the past 5 years. And yes, it has taken 5 years for us to close this deal. Today, I have the humbling privilege to stand on the shoulders of those who had the vision and dedication to take on such an onerous and worthy, yes, very critical task. Since 2014, the success of Anza-Borrego Foundation has been my focus. I can honestly say I have never worked with a more passionate, dedicated, or innovative group of staff, board, or volunteers. Tonight, we are celebrating our efforts to protect the natural world in all its excellence and wisdom. Access to and time in the natural world is a very important part of my well-being. When I left graduate school 12 years ago, I had an MBA in my mind and the natural world in my heart. I dreamt of making a huge impact, and my personal mission was to share the importance of the natural world and connect people to it through business. I wasn't sure how or what this would look like. Today, I'm living that dream. Our work here at Anza-Borrego Foundation continues to grow with a vision of educating and inspiring new advocates for the natural wonders of Anza-Borrego and its region. And tonight's celebration honors a very tangible impact. Over the past 54 years, Anza-Borrego Foundation has supported the park with more than $34 million in land, programs, and cash support. With this transfer of land, that number increases significantly. My hope for you tonight is that you will be inspired, learn something new, and most of all, help us to celebrate. Now, for some technical housekeeping. I'd like to invite all of you to log into VFox if you haven't already. VFox is the interactive portion of this event tonight. It's the part where we get to hear from you. So make sure to follow the instructions sent to you this morning by email and go ahead and log in. There's also at the bottom of the screen a link and a session ID that you can use if you haven't logged in yet. We're going to do a test. So if you could go ahead and log in if you're not already, and let's give it a try. Once you're logged in, please type in one word that describes the work of Anza-Borrego Foundation. And we'll try our first word cloud together. While we're waiting for that, I'd like to also share with you that during tonight's event, you'll see a donate button at the bottom of the screen. If you're feeling inspired, we invite you to make a gift, knowing that all donations made tonight will go towards purchasing remaining 14,000 acres of inholdings needed to complete the park. Now let's take a look at that word cloud. All right, dedicated, amazing, awesome. Love it. Legacy, innovative, flexible. Looks like we're pros. So we're ready for tonight. I'd like to introduce to you tonight our MC for the evening. He is a former superintendent of Anza-Borrego Desert State Park and our current land committee chair. He has played a special role in this acquisition of lands represented in the 17,000 acre transfer as a park employee and as many years as a volunteer with Anza-Borrego Foundation. It's an honor and great pleasure to work with him. His clear vision, big ideas are a gift to ABF and how we achieve our goals. Please help me welcome Dave Van Cleve. Cheers.
Cheers, Bree, and thank you for that introduction. I'd like to encourage all of you to be in a celebratory mood tonight, because this is a big deal, and in my life, I've learned it's important to celebrate big deals, birthdays, anniversaries, graduations, and big land transfers. So I invite you to put down the top of this convertible we're going to be driving tonight, turn up the Isley Brothers to maximum volume, and just follow us on this journey for the next hour as we explore, with the help of many, many experts, how significant this transaction really is. I was lucky to become a trustee for the Anza-Borrego Foundation in 1989. Now, the organization has been around for 54 years, and I've been associated with it for the last 32, and I feel very fortunate. But I'd like also to point out the major pivot that's been occurring in the organization since I've been involved with it. As many nonprofits do, it started out as a small, narrow-focused organization, pretty much doing business out of a cigar box for their change. And about 25 years ago, we started learning about the science of conservation biology, and one of our guest speakers, Scott Morrison, will talk about that more later. But it really changed the focus of Anza-Borrego Foundation. Instead of 5, 10 acre, 20 acre parcels, inholdings within the park, we added the focus of attaching, connecting, providing connectivity for wildlife and for people between existing reserves, and the main reserve would be Anza-Borrego. So we were able to connect Anza-Borrego to state lands at Cuyamaca Rancho State Parks. And now there's a continuum between those two parks, and not only latitude, but also altitude. It goes from the desert floor up to over 5,000 feet. So this is important, not only for connectivity for wildlife, but for ecological complexity, biological diversity, and climate change adaptation. The species can move up and down the mountain in reaction to climate change. Now I'd like to talk about 17,597 acres a little bit. That's a lot of property. That's a big portfolio of land. And what does that mean for state parks? Well, if that 17,000 acres were a brand new state park, it would be the 9th largest state park in California. 9th largest. It's a big deal. And some of those properties have really been designed, especially with these connectivity lands, to connect to special other properties. We mentioned Cuyamaca Rancho, but it also provides connections to wilderness areas in BLM ownership, to the county reserve at Vulcan Mountain, to state fish and wildlife lands in San Felipe Valley. So this is an important part of the world that we're working in. And we're really privileged to be here and be able to honor this success. I promise you, you're going to be in for a great evening because we have an excellent slate of speakers to help us on this journey. Not only Ray Lennox, our district superintendent for Colorado Desert, but the director of state parks, Armando Quintero, is going to speak. And a good old friend of mine, Scott Morrison, whom I met at the Nature Conservancy, who is now the head of conservation programs and science for California for the Nature Conservancy. And the Nature Conservancy, TNC, is a big player in California, so it's good to have these people on our side. I also want to honor those who have come before, the presidents of Anza-Borrego Foundation, the trustees, the volunteers. In particular, I'd like to honor Dick Troy and another former president, a volunteer, Chuck Bennett, who really came up with this idea of the transfer. And it's not a typical transfer of land. It's not Anza-Borrego buys it, we donate or sell it to the park. This is, as Bree mentioned and Bill mentioned, it just has taken a long time to get to this point, and it's very complicated. We'll talk about that a little bit more, but I want to really honor those who have set the table for us today. So sit back and enjoy. I will be your pilot, driver of your convertible for tonight, and we really hope you have a great time. So we're going to start on the ground floor and hear from those who live, work, and play in Borrego Springs and in Anza-Borrego Desert State Park.
Hi, my name's Eli. I'm a volunteer at the Visitor Center, and this land transfer is huge, both literally and figuratively, because now more of California's land and animals can be protected by Anza-Borrego Desert State Park.
Hi, my name is Gina Nordy. I'm a trail and outdoor recreation coordinator in the San Diego backcountry. I'm also an avid hiker and live in close proximity to the Anza-Borrego Desert State Park. I'm very excited about the big deal and all that it entails. Way to go, ABF, on all your hard work, dedication, and perseverance in securing this land. The environment is very excited as well. Way to go.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Victorino. I work for Anza-Borrego Desert State Park on the Natural Resource Management Field Crew.
Hi everyone, I'm Paulette Morales. I work for Anza-Borrego Desert State Park and I'm the environmental scientist here for the Natural Resources Department.
I've been working and living here for about 4 years now, and it's been a very rewarding and exciting experience. I used to find myself camping out here every week regardless, so I thought, why not, try and work and live out here. So, the addition of all this land is very exciting because not only am I going to get to explore, but work on all this new territory that we're acquiring.
Yeah, so I actually recently got here about a little under 2 years ago, so it's pretty great being here. It's very beautiful. We get to be around nature almost all the time. Like, we walk out our door and we get to see the flowers blooming, we get to see the bunnies, and and like the wildlife around here, and it's quite great to have that right outside your office. But also living here, as soon as I step out my door, I get to see the sunsets, you know, early in the morning, you get to see all the beautiful colors coming up. It's just an amazing place to be here, and the fact that we're expanding is amazing because that means we get to protect more wildlife and more of the natural resources, and we get to enjoy all of that.
So cheers to more land for us to protect and explore.
And thanks to all of you. And I have a prediction to make. I predict that Eli will someday be the district superintendent of the Colorado Desert. What a fine young man. I would like to take this opportunity, and it's my pleasure to introduce the current district superintendent of Colorado Desert District, Mr. Ray Lennox. And one thing that I've learned, both as a state park superintendent and as a volunteer for Anza-Borrego Foundation, that the relationship with the superintendent is really the highest priority for Anza-Borrego Foundation. Without a strong relationship that works and works well and works smoothly, it's really hard to get work done. So we're very lucky, very fortunate and honored to have Ray Lennox as our superintendent, to be the liaison with Anza-Borrego Foundation for this type of work.
Hi, my name is Ray Lennox, District Superintendent of the Colorado Desert District, which includes Anza-Borrego Desert State Park. I'm excited to be here this evening to celebrate the long-awaited land transfer of 17,597 acres between Anza-Borrego Foundation and California State Parks. For the past 54 years, Anza-Borrego Foundation has acquired and transferred more than 5,500 acres of inholdings to Anza-Borrego Desert State Park, protecting these lands for future generations. There's an estimated 14,000 acres of inholdings remaining within the park. On behalf of Anza-Borrego Desert State Park and the Colorado Desert District, I want to thank Anza-Borrego Foundation, its board, staff, volunteers, and everyone else that has made this land transfer possible. Anza-Borrego Desert State Park is the largest state park in California at over 1,000 square miles and spans across 3 counties. In the upper elevations of the Peninsular Mountain Range to the west is San Diego County. As you move down the mountain slope to the vast desert floor to the east, you reach into Imperial County. The south end of the park comes to within a mile or so of the international border with Mexico and stretches north into Riverside County. Well over 2/3 of the park is classified as state wilderness and cultural preserves, which receives the highest levels of protection. Anza-Borrego Desert State Park is home to 2 of 3 desert wetlands in the Colorado Desert region and provides critical habitat for over 1,700 different species of plants and animals. Some of these species are only found within the park. It is also home to several threatened and endangered species. One of the most notable is a peninsular bighorn sheep, which is specific to this region. There's a rich deposit of over 550 documented terrestrial and aquatic fossils, some dating back to over 9 million years. As mentioned earlier, we are on the ancestral homelands and territory of the Kumeyaay and Cahuilla indigenous people. As such, the park has over 10,000 recorded cultural sites, and it is believed that there is an additional 10,000 sites unrecorded in the park. The 17,597 acres being transferred represents over 310 miles of private property lines within the park. There is just under 10,000 acres in designated state wilderness areas and cultural preserves. Some of these parcels are in areas that are rich in paleontological resources and other areas that provide habitat for sensitive and endangered species. Many of these parcels have no road or trail access. As you can imagine, this has created problems in the past with illegal trespassing, resource damage, and the need for easements and right-of-ways onto these parcels, just to name a few. Please join me in thanking the Anza-Borrego Foundation for its wonderful and valuable partnership with their land conservation program and the continued support they provide Anza-Borrego Desert State Park, the visiting public, and helping California state parks better achieve its mission. Thank you.
Thank you, Ray. Thanks for the great work you've been doing. I'd like to ask our viewers at this time to share one word on VIVOX once again. The question this time is, why is Anza-Borrego Desert State Park important to you? And at this time, I'd like to introduce Julie Gerson, who is the land program manager for the foundation. And Julie's doing great work. It's tough work. And she was trained and used as mentors Dolores Lucchina, whom we'll talk about a little bit later. And prior to Dolores was Roma Rentz. Both of these women, volunteers, put in tens of thousands of hours to process these parcels of land over the past 54 years. That means reviewing a title report, reviewing tax rolls, reviewing a preliminary title report, providing for an appraisal if that's necessary, signing the closing documents. It is grinding work, and all three of those women are just heroes of mine, and I applaud their work. Couldn't do it without you. So without further ado, let me introduce you to Julie Gerson.
My name is Julie Gerson, and I am the Land Program Manager at Anza-Borrego Foundation. On a map, Anza-Borrego Desert State Park looks a little like a puzzle with a lot of pieces missing. My role is to figure out how to fill in those missing pieces. It takes a lot of patience and research, but when it all comes together and I can fill in the puzzle, it is incredibly exciting and rewarding to make the park whole and to preserve it for the enjoyment of future generations. We only acquire land from willing sellers or donors, and while that seems pretty straightforward, I spend a lot of time tracking down ownership records, determining easements and title issues, and whether the owners are interested in selling. I also have to know if ABF has the funds available to make an offer when an owner is ready to sell. I stay current on property values and title issues, as well as using mapping programs to help me find the exact location of properties. Many people have inherited their desert land, don't know exactly where it is located, how to get to it, or what it is worth. It's often just a waiting game, and ABF has to be ready to move when an opportunity to purchase arises. I am honored to work with dedicated volunteers and our state park partners, and I think it is a really big deal.
Thank you, Julie, for your great work. I'd like to share now the results of our latest VIVOX word cloud. One word on why is Anza-Borrego Desert State Park important to you? I'll let you look at those. And I'd like to move on to our next speaker, who is the Honorable Armando Quintero, who is currently the Director of California State Parks. And Armando's been Director for about a year now. And I haven't shared this with the Director, but when he was named, I ran a little background on him. I have friends at the National Park Service where Armando worked for 20 years. I asked them, what about this guy? And they all said, he's a great man. He's going to be an excellent director. You're going to really like working with him. course, we haven't had the chance really to work with too many people in the last year, but we're really looking forward to having him down at the park. We'd like to extend him an invitation to come down here and see the largest state park in California, and he can really be efficient by seeing 45% of the state park system in one visit by visiting this district. So at this point, I'd like to turn it over to the director, the Honorable Armando Quintero.
California State Parks and Department of Parks and Recreation were formed as a result of the extraordinary efforts of the public and park partners who insisted to state government leaders that we needed to protect lands for Californians to enjoy, and we needed to create a department that could manage those lands. Anza-Borrego today is an extraordinary living archive of the human and natural history of the Colorado Desert region. Today's event is being held on the ancestral lands of the Kumeyaay and the Cahuilla people of the Colorado Desert region. At this moment, all of us are being challenged, and California's state parks are facing an unprecedented rate of change and threats. So how do we think about the future now? With the year and a half of wildfire and pandemic and drought, parks stand out as essential landscapes for all of us. It is these outdoor places that help us stay physically healthy, mentally resilient, and engaged with family and the world. As park professionals, your state park teams are working with park partners, subject area specialists, and you, the public, in efforts to apply the best wisdom for the protection and sustainable management of parks, natural resources, cultural resources, public safety, sustainable design for facilities, and assuring that these parks are for all. In October, the governor issued a 30 by 30 initiative, which is a commitment to protect 30% of all the lands and waters in California by 2030. This order directs state park agencies to catalog, study, and protect the state's diversity of wildlife species. The order also directs us and all other land management agencies to develop nature-based solutions to address climate change, which will sequester carbon, create wildlife habitat, and benefit all Californians, especially those living in disadvantaged communities. State park partners like the Anza-Borrego Foundation are profoundly important partners for California state parks. 17,597 acres of formerly private inholdings of land are being transferred to Anza-Borrego State Parks from the Anza-Borrego Foundation. Really, this couldn't happen without you. There are 331 separate parcels of land that are included in this gift, and likely this is the single largest transfer of land from a cooperating association to a state park in the history of California state parks. I mean, this is really significant. Almost 10,000 of these acres are designated state wilderness areas, and this act literally dissolves 310 miles of private property lines, and these lines affected parks management. The largest single parcel is 690 acres, and the smallest is a former mining claim, and it's only 3 feet by 402 feet. This is quite a collection of properties. The oldest acquisition was purchased by the Anza-Borrego Foundation in 1992, 29 years ago, and the most recent of these properties was purchased in 2016. This collection of lands actually provides connectivity and wildlife corridors between Cuyamaca Rancho State Park and Anza-Borrego Desert State Park, and in the far south near the border with Mexico. 3,500 acres are in the Badlands, which is an area that has a rich paleontological set of resources, as well as the flat-tailed horned lizard. There are hundreds of acres that preserve the flower fields, which are an incredibly popular springtime wildflower viewing area. There's also an area called Coyote Canyon, which now has an additional 6,000 acres for you, the public, to enjoy. Anza-Borrego is actually a state park because of an accident of timing. It was destined to become a national park based on its natural resources, diversity, size, and integrity. It was waylaid from national status because of the Great Depression, and instead it became a part of the newly formed California State Park system. Formed in 1957 when Anza Desert Park was established, which was established in 1933, this park was combined with the Desert State Park, which was established in 1932 to form the one park that we know today. It's a United Nations Biosphere Reserve, and it's also a National Natural Landmark. The Colorado Desert District, which includes Anza-Borrego Desert State Park, Cuyamaca Rancho State Park, Palomar Mountain State Park, has about half of the total real estate of the entire 280-unit California State Park system. This park has great natural diversity, and the landscape varies from sea level to over 6,000 feet in altitude. The park has more than 5,000 Native American cultural sites within its boundaries, and it is renowned worldwide for its natural resources, especially its unbroken 7-million-year paleontological evolutionary record of the Pleistocene era. It has incredible wildflower displays. Its endangered plants and animals include the park's namesakes, Borrego, the peninsula bighorn sheep, flat-tailed horned lizards, and numerous other flora and fauna. Anza-Borrego actually has a sister park, and that sister park is in Mongolia. It's called the Iknart Nature Reserve, and is a protected area in another desert, in a place called the East Gobi Province of Mongolia. So, on February 17th, 1967, the Anza-Borrego Committee of Desert Protective Council, later the Anza-Borrego Foundation, was created to protect and assist this desert park. The ABF has acquired more than 55,000 acres to be incorporated in perpetuity into Anza-Borrego Desert State Park. The current transfer of 17,597 acres of private inholdings to Anza-Borrego Desert State Park represents, as I said earlier, several decades of effort by ABF, fundraising, working with private and public entities to acquire grants, negotiations with scores of landowners, working with park staff, archaeologists, wildlife biologists, historians, botanists, and paleontologists to strategically prioritize and ultimately purchase many diverse properties throughout the 650,000-acre state park. This is a world of desert bighorn sheep, mountain lion, flat-tailed horned lizards, Kino checkerspot butterfly, wildlife corridors, plant communities, and expanses of desert wildflower landscapes. The fossil record of the last several million years is preserved in stone. Humans have dreamt and lived in this region for many thousands of years, and these are the stories of and for all Californians. My heartfelt thanks to the members of the Anza-Borrego Foundation for your tireless work. Thank you to the Anza-Borrego Park's leadership and to all of the communities and community members who have contributed to this trajectory of success that we gather today to celebrate. It's an honor to join you by video, but I sure wish I was standing in the desert with all of you. Thank you so much to each and every one of you.
And thank you, Director Quintero. I know you're excited about visiting the park. We're excited about having you come visit the park, and we'll follow up on that and make sure that you get to visit the park, because you're going to be astounded by this amazing place. I'd like to ask the viewers to, again, go to Vivox and share one word on how they were inspired by the director's speech. At this time, I'd like to introduce some of our colleagues who are professionals in the parks and conservation world. We'll start with Alfredo Gonzalez, who is a friend of mine at the Nature Conservancy and now is a director for the Resources Legacy Fund in Sacramento.
Congratulations to the Anza-Borrego Foundation. The transfer of over 17,000 acres to the Anza-Borrego Desert State Park has been a long time coming. I'm Alfredo Gonzalez from the Resources Legacy Fund, and it's our pleasure to be celebrating this significant achievement with you all. For over 2 decades, the Resources Legacy Fund has worked with philanthropists and partners in the nonprofit and government sector to conserve land, water, and coastal resources while advancing social equity. We are proud of the long and successful partnership that we've had with the Anza-Borrego Foundation and the amazing work that we've been able to accomplish together to deliver permanent protection of Southern California's wildlands through the preservation of desert lands and wilderness areas. For over 15 years, RLF has awarded approximately $8 million to the foundation to acquire inholdings within Anza-Borrego Desert State Park. These inholding acquisitions maximize protection of wildlands and ease management challenges within a complex matrix of public and private land ownership. With funds from RLF, the foundation has acquired over 27,000 acres, some of which are included in the sale of lands to state parks. In addition to permanently protecting critical conservation lands, this transaction will increase access opportunities for all people to enjoy and will contribute to the state's commitment to protecting our shared natural resources through the conservation of at least 30% of lands and waters by 2030. RLF is pleased to be part of the protection of this important state park and the opportunities that it will provide for people, plants, and animals for generations to come. Thank you and congratulations.
Hi there, I'm Kinley Walsh-Lawler, President and CEO of Parks California, and I'm here to say a big congratulations to Anza-Borrego Foundation for this amazing achievement, something they've been working on for decades. As California State Parks' statutory partner, Parks California works to strengthen parks and inspire all to experience these extraordinary places, parks like Anza-Borrego Desert State Park. Parks are central to California's identity. They reflect our natural treasures, tell the history of our people, and reinforce our reputation as leading environmental stewards. We hope tonight's celebration inspires you to visit and connect with Anza-Borrego State Park. Thanks, everybody.
Hi, my name is George Lawyer. I'm the president of the California League of Park Associations, CALPA for short. We are an umbrella organization of cooperating associations who support California state parks. And CALPA is really proud of our member, the Anza-Borrego Foundation, because they and we are celebrating a really big deal event. The single largest transfer of land to the California State Parks system in history. Over 17,000 acres that includes historical, cultural, natural, and sensitive areas. The foundation has been working for 30 years to assemble these lands from private holdings, and the impact of the transfer includes improving access for humans and bridging important wildlife corridors. We at CALPA are extremely pleased to recognize this gift from the Anza-Borrego Foundation to all of us.
Hi, I'm Dan Pushkar, President and CEO of the Public Lands Alliance, here to congratulate Anza-Borrego Foundation for their historic achievements. This gift of more than 17,000 acres is not just a gift of land. It means easier park management, new areas of wilderness for the state park system, new opportunities for visitors to experience the wildflowers in the California desert. Anza-Borrego Foundation is the epitome of what cooperating associations can be for our state parks. We're so pleased to have them within the Public Lands Alliance. Congratulations to all.
Hello, I'm Liz Bergeron, the Executive Director and CEO of the Pacific Crest Trail Association. As some of you may know, the Pacific Crest National Scenic Trail travels through the Anza-Borrego State Park for a portion of its path from Mexico to Canada. But what you might not know is that some of the trail within the state park travels across or adjacent to private land that offers no long-term protection to the trail. We are grateful to have partnered with the Anza-Borrego Foundation on a few transactions that have helped to acquire some of those private lands, including the one pictured here, and we join in celebrating this historic transfer of lands from the foundation to the park. Protecting the trail in this area is a really big deal for all trail users.
Thanks to all of you professionals who do tremendous work in your field and also work with us and acknowledge our work. What a treat to have you on our side. I'd like to show you now the results from our VVOC survey on the inspiration that the director provided during his speech. Some great words. Hope. I'm going to talk about hope a little bit later. Visionary, connectivity, community, commitment, heart, sustainability, sister park, appreciation, and legacy, to mention just a few. Thank you for weighing in on that. Next, I'd like to introduce one of our keynote speakers for the evening, Scott Morrison. And Scott is the Director of Conservation Programs and Science for the Nature Conservancy here in California. Now, the Nature Conservancy is a big organization, billions of dollars in assets. They work in 30 different countries throughout the world, all 50 states, and they do a lot of conservation work. And it's all science-based, which I think is very important. And Scott is one of those people they rely on for his opinion on where to go in their programs. So Scott is a very eloquent and intelligent young man, and I welcome him next.
Thank you so much for this opportunity to celebrate this really big deal with you all. My name is Scott Morrison, and I direct the conservation and science programs for the Nature Conservancy here in California. One of the particularly nice things about today's occasion is that it gives me an opportunity to go back to some of my earliest memories working for the Conservancy. When 20 years ago, I was hired on to the Conservancy's team that was working with the Anza-Borrego Foundation and a terrific coalition of other public and private partners to protect the San Diego backcountry. I remember walking along the ecoregional divide between the mountains of the South Coast and the expanse of the Sonoran Desert with then Superintendent Dave Van Cleve, trying to figure out how to protect places that would ecologically connect Anza-Borrego Desert State Park and Cuyamaca Rancho State Park. How great to see all that work continuing to this day, because it was really important then, and it's arguably even more important now. And that's because all these acres that we're protecting, more often than not, have an outsized importance. These lands being added to the park don't just protect the natural and cultural resources on those specific places. They also buffer and connect and help protect the integrity of and the conservation values of the lands that are adjacent that might have been protected at some point in the past. Another way of saying it, not all acres are created equal. And these acres being added to the park now add up to way more than the sum. This is the critical work of our era. Figuring out how to shore up a network of conservation lands that will enable the plants and animals that share this world to ride with us into the future. And those plants and animals and desert systems, they in particular could use our help. That's because they can tend to be especially vulnerable. You just think about how they already really live at the edge here. They live in an environment that has exceedingly low precipitation, but not just that, whatever rainfall does come is highly unpredictable. These species also, of course, need to withstand extreme temperatures and extreme temperature swings, even going from very hot to very cold and then back to hot again in the same 24-hour cycle. It's really extraordinary, the adaptations these plants and animals have. But now, with all the changes we're imposing on the climate, we're really pushing the upper limits of the heat and drought tolerances of these species. But not only that, we're compounding these hardships with all the other changes that we've brought to the landscape, the developments, the resource extraction, the water diversions, and so on. And it just doesn't take that much to mess up the desert. Just disturbing that soil crust can lead to significant damage, to significant erosion, to the invasion of weeds. Invasive grasses can introduce fire to ecosystems that aren't supposed to have fire. And vegetation that is not adapted to fire often can't recover. And then that sets up this vicious cycle where you then have more grass and then you have even more fire. groundwater pumping that can be miles away, can lower water tables, and by the time you see the spring dry up or the mesquite forest die off, the ecological damage may be done and may well be irreversible. That highway way over there, that border infrastructure way over there, those can create impermeable barriers to wildlife and have cascading effects on the ability of a region to sustain populations of bighorn or mountain lion over the long term. So this urgency for conservation it's all around us. You see it every day in your news feed. But the biodiversity crisis that we all worry about, got to remember, it's not just in some faraway place like a coral reef or a tropical rainforest. San Diego County has more species than any other county in the continental United States, and it has more imperiled species. So that mass extinction crisis that you read about, it's right here. It's in our own backyard. And when you stare that in its face, it can be hard to muster optimism. But it's occasions like this that remind us that we should be optimistic. And that's because one of the most effective things we can be doing to give nature a chance is exactly what we're celebrating today: protecting places, shoring up our parks and preserves. We know that when lands are fragmented by human land uses, ecosystems tend to unravel and native species tend to disappear. San Diego County is actually famous in scientific circles as one of the first places we really figured a lot of this out. Research conducted in the canyons of San Diego, those habitat fragments that are like islands in a sea of residential development, that research brought about some of the insights that led to the dawn of a whole new scientific discipline, conservation biology. That's the science that guides our conservation planning and actions today. That's the science that tells us that we need to stitch together a network of interconnected lands and waters across the extraordinary diversity of California's ecosystem types, so that plants and animals not only have a place to live today, but so that they can find the places they will need in the future as climates change. And when we're successful building out that network, we protect far more than just places for wild nature. We protect drinking water watersheds. We keep carbon sequestered in the soil and in vegetation. We protect nature-based recreation opportunities. We protect cultural resources, historical resources, some of which are irreplaceable. We protect places that to many are sacred. When we do conservation right, we protect what makes this world so wondrous and connects us to what it means to be human. One of my most treasured places is in Anza-Borrego. I won't tell you where it is, but deep in the park, there is a canyon without a name. And if you go down that canyon, off to the left is this very narrow slot canyon. And you can tuck yourself into the shade of it and disappear for days. I take this cup that 60 years ago was a wedding gift for my parents. Put a single candle in it, and that tiny flame illuminates these walls that tower all around me. And you lay there and you watch all the stars in the sky pass by above. It's beautiful. And it's so important that these places exist because they ground us, they nourish us, they inspire us. They fortify our faith that we can indeed figure this out, that we can figure out how to live in this world without wrecking it. We can turn this around when we all lean in together and pull off deals like these. Thank you for what you've done here. I am so grateful for the Anza-Borrego Foundation, for our incredible state park system. Thank you for your leadership, for your vision, for your partnership, for strengthening and stewarding this extraordinary and extraordinarily important legacy in California. And to all of you that love and support these two institutions, this simply wouldn't be possible without your passion and commitment. So thank you for this investment in our shared future. I so look forward to getting out there and seeing these lands, and I very much look forward to our paths crossing out there one of these days soon. In the meantime, cheers.
Wow. Thank you, Scott. Once again, as you've done many times in the past, you've inspired me. And I only wish that I had 2 donate buttons on my screen, because you inspired me to donate. I'd like to talk about some of the things that Scott mentioned and add a little bit of my perspective on those. One is where Scott and I met 20 years ago was a place called Lucky 5. Probably some of you, hopefully many of you have heard of Lucky 5. It was the first parcel that connected Anza-Borrego to Cuyamaca Rancho State Park. And it's a beautiful valley. You've seen it in some of the overflights that we've shown on this video. It's a montane forest. It's conifers. It's not a typical what you think of when you think of Anza-Borrego. But it was a high priority for 50 years. And what happens in our business of acquiring land is that we only buy from willing sellers. So if the sellers, the owners of Lucky 5 at times were not willing to sell, and the state had a lot of money derived from bond funds. And then when the state had no money from bond funds available, then the sellers seemed more willing to sell. It's just one of the funny things in this business where it seems like you can have a list of 10 priorities, the highest priorities, and if the people don't want to sell them, then you can't buy them. So it's a business, it's a passion that requires patience and fortitude, longevity. And I think the Anza-Borrego Foundation has demonstrated through its staff and its board those qualities that we're in this for the long haul. We're already 54 years old. We're older than almost every other land trust in the country. The other thing I'd like to mention is Scott talked about deserts quite a bit. So the Nature Conservancy participated in a worldwide examination of the protection of different ecotypes, ecosystems. Because in every, the Nature Conservancy, as I mentioned, is a big company, big nonprofit, but still their funds are limited when you look at what they're trying to do worldwide. So everybody sets priorities, you have to. So the drill here was to identify those ecosystems that are the least protected in the world. And guess what number 1 was under protection? It was our deserts, the world's deserts. So that makes it, I think, more important than ever that we here at Anza-Borrego Foundation, and with your help, continue to conserve these very important desert lands. You know, the redwoods are important. In my view, the world has said, let's protect our deserts. Scott mentioned that he has a favorite spot in Anza-Borrego Desert State Park. So let's go back to Vivox for a minute, and I'd like you to add your favorite spot at Anza-Borrego Desert State Park. And next up, we have a couple of speakers who are going to talk about the importance of access and conservation.
My name is Kate Boersma, and I'm an ecologist studying aquatic habitats in Anza-Borrego and the fish, frogs, and aquatic insects that call these habitats home. I'm particularly excited about this land acquisition because it conserves a large portion of Coyote Canyon upstream from Coyote Creek. So given climate change, we know that surface water is decreasing. And that makes it fundamentally important for us to understand what's going on in the entire coyote drainage, all the way from the headwaters down to the citrus groves. This extension of the park will allow new opportunities for research, for recreation, and for preservation of this important habitat, both for aquatic biodiversity and also for us humans to enjoy.
Hello, I'm Andy Masuga, honorary mayor of Borrego Springs and owner of Carly's. I would just like to take this opportunity to congratulate the Anza-Borrego Foundation and Anza-Borrego Desert State Park on their monumental land transfer. 17,597 acres. That's a pretty good chunk of land. To put it in perspective, that is roughly just under half the acreage of the entire District of Columbia. Transferring this land to our largest California state park will ensure areas for our desert wildlife to continue to thrive, areas for our desert vegetation and landscape to continue on without fear of development or encroachment. This land will continue to provide paleontologists, botanists, nature lovers, tourists, and hikers alike with the opportunity to discover and enjoy. As a business owner in Borrego Springs, this transfer is key to our economy as it increases the Coyote Canyon area. It also preserves our flower fields, which are instrumental to our economy. As a father and hopefully someday a grandfather, it preserves more area of our beautiful desert so that our children, grandchildren, and generations to come may enjoy it as we have. So thank you to the Anza-Borrego Foundation for all the work you've done to make this possible and ensure our desert's protection for years to come. Thank you.
Thank you for your support of the park and the foundation. Well, let's go to our Vivox word cloud on favorite places in Anza-Borrego Desert State Park. Washes, Cougar Canyon, third crossing of Coyote Canyon, Fonts Point, Petroglyphs, third crossing, Middle Willows, Mountain Palm Springs, and many others. And I would wager that of the 17,000 acres that are in this deal, many of these areas you mentioned are included in part. And I would also wager that each of these areas that we mentioned as our favorite places, many of those have inholdings that are still in private ownership that we still need to acquire. So your support going forward is really vital to help protect these favorite places. I'd like to talk about, I promise you I'd talk about hope for a second, maybe a minute. Okay, 10 minutes. In 1864, there was a lot going on in the United States, particularly the Civil War. And in 1864, Abraham Lincoln, the president, signed legislation that created the first state park in the United States. It was called Yosemite Valley, the Mariposa Grove. It eventually became part of Yosemite National Park, of course, but it was a state park for quite a while. And you can imagine how much was on the plate of congressmen and US senators and the president at that time, and the depths of a civil war, some of the darkest times in our history. And they found the courage and the inspiration to create something new. It wasn't like, now you say, okay, another state park, let's create another state park. That was the first one. So the first time out of that gate, they had to really be creative. And the director, Armando Quintero, mentioned in 1932 the formation of Anza-Borrego Desert State Park. Well, guess what was going on in 1932? Between 1932 and 1938, again, one of the darkest periods in our history, the Great Depression, was the largest expansion of the state park system in history. Not only the number of parks, but visitation, acres, campgrounds, trails, picnic sites. Everything just boomed. And I think it's a little bit like COVID. There's people, they didn't have jobs, but they needed to get outside and enjoy these places. These places were their bright spot, their hope in a very dark time. In May of 1942, let's flash forward again. 5 months after the bombing of Pearl Harbor, President Roosevelt signed legislation that transferred a bunch of land to Grand Teton National Park. I bet he had other things on his mind in 1942. But he found, as President Lincoln found and the people of California found in 1932, that it's necessary to have these times of hope to look forward to in the future, to inspire us, because these parks are important. I think it gets overlooked a lot. Director Quintero also mentioned the 30 by 30 initiative that California is engaging on at the direction of the governor. And I can assure you the Anza-Borrego Foundation is represented in the conversations that are saying, how do we do that? And the thing I want to focus on is the hope that this provides, that we're going to preserve 30% of California in perpetuity. What a terrific goal. Can we do it by 2030? I don't know. But we won't fail for not trying. We're going to try as hard as we can, and we need your help for that. I'd like to show you a map of the land that's left to acquire at Anza-Borrego, the 14,000 acres. You can see there's some parcels really all throughout the park. One of those that's on our horizon right now is, as one of our speakers mentioned, it's associated with the Pacific Crest Trail. You can see some in the Badlands. You can see some in the southern end of the park. So there's quite a bit of work to do. And we thank you for your generosity in helping us in the future move towards completion of the park. We'd like to thank those who made this land transfer possible. There's a couple names in particular. Dolores Lucchina, I mentioned, and Dolores was very instrumental in the foundation. And Daryl Sniff, who at State Parks was really instrumental in kind of breaking down the barriers of state government, state bureaucracy for that matter, in helping this come through. So on our list of people we want to thank are several former presidents of Anza-Borrego Foundation, former staff like Linda Tannell, the first executive director of ABF, somebody like Mark Jorgensen, without whom Anza-Borrego would be a much poorer place, Eloise G., who toiled away behind the scenes to provide maps of inholdings and park acquisitions. And we have some of my most important contacts are those at, as Alfredo Gonzalez mentioned, Resources Legacy Fund. As Alfredo mentioned, RLF, Resources Legacy Fund, has contributed many millions of dollars. It's resulted in many thousands of acres being protected. Without Michael Mantell and Ed Hasty, and especially Peggy McNutt, who really bird-dogged this project, we're not really sure it could have happened. So thanks to Peggy especially and RLF for all their hard work.
There you are. Hi, Dave. I was on mute there for a minute. I wanted to pop in and just say a special thanks to you also, not only as a park superintendent during the time of when several of these acquisitions were put into place, but also as a volunteer. Your many years of volunteering with us has had a major impact on the success of Anza-Borrego Foundation, and more specifically in our land transactions with all of your hard work and wisdom from all of your work with the park. So thank you. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yes, as you can see, it takes many people and many years of work to transfer this amount of land. As Dave mentioned, it's a labor of passion and love for everyone involved, and the celebrations seem few and far between for how long some of these transactions take. We really hope that over the next 15 years, we can meet our goal in completing the park with just 14,000 acres remaining seems small compared to what we're celebrating tonight. I'd also like to thank everyone for joining us this evening and hope you've had a great time with us. Thank you to all the contributors that have made tonight possible. There's a lot going on behind the scenes to pull something off like this, and especially our speakers. I mean, wow, so much inspiration, so many wise words, so much vision. Just really grateful for everyone who joined us tonight to contribute and make this such a special event. So I'd like to end the evening with a special cheers. We'll leave you with some special notes from two of our most beloved donors and dear friends, Tim Milcarrick, Brian Marquez, and family.
Oh, all right. Now, for all of you watching, here's the part where you get your cocktail or your mocktail, and you say, cheers to 60 more years. Oh, that rhymes. Of course it rhymes.